Hello, my name is Leila Mata. I'm the Residential Life Director here at UWC Costa Rica. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to talk a little bit about the wellness programs we have here at school. And I know that a lot of alumni probably will be watching, and for us, this is a great invitation for the webinar we will have soon to have more questions from you and specific proposals or whatever you want to share with us. You need to know that we're really proud of many of you, and especially knowing that many of you are doing things related also with wellness and mental health. Yes, we would like to give like an introduction of what the webinar will be. But basically, it all started, or maybe it will have more sense to explain why we start working with a wellness program. And for the first generations, I guess you will remember that we used to have a program that was called Integral Health. And that's how it all started, right? Because we started wondering, how can we do this better? And then we also noticed what's happening around the world, right? The last statistics from the International Organization on Health, they are explaining that we are having a lot of teenagers with mental health problems. And the suicide statistics around the world are usually coming from that age, between the 19 years old and 30 years old. So of course, having almost 90 nationality on campus, we also receive an effect on that. We are receiving more students with some challenges. But it's also true that the educational program we have creates a lot of crisis, right? And we know that many times it's a very good crisis, right? Because it's a moment for students to start wondering about who they are, what they want to do, their values, their views. So we know that when they have the right support, this becomes the life-changing experience that many of you have had. So because of all those reasons, we start wondering, what else can we do? How can we improve it? Also, the UWC movement start wondering the same. It was not just Costa Rica. Other UWCs start asking themselves, how can we do this better? And that's how we start looking for best practices. And we have the big support from Selena Cermeño. Again, I guess some alumni will remember about her from El Salvador, and she has more than 15 years working with the UWC movement. She's a psychologist as well as me. And together with our wellness team, right now we have René Sandoval, some of you will remember him, and Nela, two psychologists and counselors on campus. And with them and other very important people like the academic director, Natalie, sorry, and the rest of the team, we start looking what are the best practices around the world. And we took as reference two very important educational programs. One is the Cornell University, and the other one is the JET Foundation. And both of them have been working a lot with a lot of research about how to support teenagers and young people with everything regarding wellness, especially in residential and boarding settings. That's exactly what we do here at the school. And from them, we took like very important principles. The first one, and of course, I'm trying to make a summary of all what we are doing, but the first one is to understand that mental health is a spectrum, right? So for years, we have been putting a lot of attention to the crisis, right? So once the student or a person is already having a depression, an eating disorder, any other symptom, that's when we activate the system. And to be honest, that's what we have many years at the beginning of the school, right? But we are not putting attention to everything else. So you have one first stage that is when students arrive and everything is fine and we are in the middle of the honeymoon. There's a lot of prevention that we can do there. And then the middle point is also detecting students that, because of our experience, we know they can be in risk, right? Like we are talking about the students coming from educational models, like the ones from Latin America, some of them that are not very strong, so we know that IB will be challenging. We are talking about students that probably don't have a very good level of English or Spanish, so we already know that for them this will be a challenge. So that's another step, how to identify this group and then start working with them since the beginning, before they present a crisis. And the last effort should be, once we did all of that, if we start having students with mental health challenges, then how we are going to help them once they are there. But there are many things we can do here. And that's what's happening in these foundations. That's what Richard is saying. Like, it's not about having a reaction when the problem is already there, but more how to prevent a person to get to that level. And then the basic result of that is to understand that mental health is not the counselor's or the psychologist's responsibility. When you have boarding schools and when you have teenagers living with you far away from their families, and in our case, from their language, their culture, their food, is a community matter. And this will only work if all of us are completely into it. And the beauty about diversity is that probably some students will feel very happy talking to me and receiving my support, and other students will not feel that well, and they prefer to talk to the tia at cafeteria that is the one serving breakfast every single day. So once we understood that, we start training the community. So everyone, right? The teachers, 3 times per year, we have the support from Selena and other facilitators. And we have training about, okay, how can you support a student once they are here? Do you really understand what's happening? Do you really understand the impact that it has in a young person to be in this environment? Do you understand that if you support this kid, they will learn even better? So we do that with the teachers, we do that with the residential team. We have, in the future, we are gonna have this year, very soon, sessions with the tias from cafeteria and general services. So some of you will remember that you get really close to some of them, even the tias that are cleaning the residence. And another big piece of this pie are the students, and how we need to understand that for some of you, coming to adults is not the best idea, right? And this is a very diverse perception. And they prefer to go to their peers, and they will feel more trust, and they feel they will understand better. So we have what we call the Residence Assistant Program that some of our alumni remember, but this was not here at the very beginning of the school. And these are 2 students that are chosen by each residence. So we have 8 residents, and they propose themselves, right? They said, I want to be a residence assistant. And their role is to support the residence coordinator with logistics and activities in the educational program, but especially to be a bridge between students and adults, or to be the support for the students that don't feel comfortable talking to adults. So they get selected by their peers. We are very happy of this program. Right now, Renee is coordinating this program. And we moved from having 10 students that wanted to take this position to almost 30, 40 every single year, which is a big group. So they are selected by their peers, and that's how we have a group of 16 students very engaged with trying to support the others. And they receive a very heavy training that moves from suicide to crisis to how to deal with feeling homesick. It's a very intensive training. And they meet every other week with Renee. So what we do is to help them about how to resolve any conflict or situation, how to help them, because many of them take this responsibility very seriously. So also how to put the limit. And this has been a very successful program too, and it's a key piece of the entire wellness program. And it's also happening around the world, right? And then the other very, very important factor is to understand, and the statistics says that for a teenager to feel supported, they should have at least between 2 or 3 adults that they feel they can trust, right? So it's not just the figure of the counselor or the external psychologist, and we will explain a little bit more about that later, is to understand that in this place, if they don't have their parents and if they don't have their friends back home, they know they have someone they trust. And again, that can be anyone in this community. So how to build relationships and how to be wise enough to make the students understand that you are approachable, that we are not here to judge them, that we can share power with them, that we are gonna analyze issues, concerns they have, and then make decisions together. All of that creates an environment of trust. And for us, that's really important, confidentiality, that a student will understand that we are going to respect their privacy and we are not gonna share specific details about what's happening in their lives. So the training for adults has been a lot into that, right? How can you be assertive? If a student makes a mistake, what will be the conversations you are gonna have, right? What are the don'ts, right? What will you do that will make a teenager or a student say, I really don't want to be with you? A very good activity we do with the staff members is to ask them to go back to the times when they were teenagers, 16, 17 years old. And we ask them, will you remember an adult that you didn't like? You know, someone that you were like, I really don't like this person. I don't like to have this person around me. I don't want this person to know that I made a mistake. So we ask them to remember that person and try to answer why they didn't like that adult, right? And then we come back to another question, and it's the opposite, right? Do you remember an adult that you love, that you were saying, if I have a problem, this is my person, right? I feel very comfortable with this person. And it's a very nice activity. We even ask them to bring pictures from the time when they were teenagers, or students love to see those pictures. And then they understand very clearly what is it that we need to do, right? It's always the same answer. An adult that is judging me, that is pushing me too much, that is not understanding what is happening with me right now, is an adult that I don't want to interact with. But the adult that is having that balance between pushing me to be better but also understanding, and that makes me feel that it's not judging me, is an adult that I would like to share with and to trust. So that's the training we have been doing all around. And then, of course, we are going by phases, right? Because this takes time. But the first year, last year of this program, right, and the changes has been really successful. And another thing we are looking at this year is how students coming from cultures that in general terms are not used to talk about mental health, and this is like a taboo, and they don't like to be vulnerable. Now they are looking for us. And these are very interesting conversations, right? Because then you have a student that is telling you, I feel really uncomfortable, I don't know why am I here, but the students keep telling me that this is a good idea, right? So that's a very good sign on how now the students are more aware of how important is their mental health and their emotional side. And of course, there were some activities we were already doing in the past that we keep because they are really successful, like the first year camp. And that's when we talk about prevention. When you have the first year camp after the honeymoon, when you have all the activities during orientation week, when we have something we call a dessert night. So basically it's conversations we have at night with all the students, and we always offer something nice to eat. But these are very nice activities that are run by students with our support. For example, the last one was about anxiety, right? So why we are having so many students suffer from anxiety? How can we help each other? How can we prevent this to happen in this amount with this amount of students, right? So those prevention activities, the other one that is really good is how we support the second years when they are getting ready for final exams and when they are getting ready to leave the school. So for some of them, this is a very difficult transition. And then again, we have several activities that help them, and usually we ask alumni to help us with one of those. So all of these together, yes, address mental health programs that are one of the main concerns, but it's also part of the educational program. And remember, our school believes in the methodology, and that's the UWC movement of experiential learning. And one of the competences we have is healthy lifestyles, right? So even if a student never has a crisis, that's the goal, that's what we want, that student, we are hoping they will learn the impact of being healthy. Why doing exercise is important, why having a time management that is healthy, why sleeping is important, how to prevent situations, right? So yes, it's mental health and how to help them, but it's also education, right? So if we want to develop leaders that are going to change the world, well, they need to be healthy, and they need to be aware that the emotional side of the human being is really relevant, and it has a very big impact in whatever they are going to do after they graduate. Well, and then about what is coming in the future, we have many plans, right? But the next one is to put a lot of attention to the national committees. So remember that we have more than 100 national committees around the world selecting students to come here. And we love them, and this movement has a lot happening because of them. But we also see a lot of diversity, right? So on how they prepare the students to come here. And we believe that if we are talking about prevention, it starts from the moment the students get selected. So a program we have that we would like to develop next year is how, and Selena Cermeño already did a writing manual for them, but we want to move on with that idea and then liaise with some, at least the regional national committees, to offer training, right? So how can we help you to prepare better the students once they are selected? How can we help parents to understand better what is this experience before the students arrive, so that when their kids are having a crisis, or when their kids tell them, I want to go home, or they know what is normal and what is not, and they know how to work together as a team, so we support the student better. The other short-term objective is the refugee program. So as you know, we already had the students coming from with a refugee status, and we learned a lot, and we have very clear what are the key elements we need to do to support them. So now what is coming is to structure and systematize that better, so that every time we have a refugee student, the staff members and the community, together with the students, is better prepared on how to support that student, right? And that we have the resources in place. Like, for example, we know that some of them will need a lot of support with the English training, right? So that's another short-term goal. And then something we did that we want to continue to develop is that in the academic area, we have one position now with Natalie, one of our psychologists, that is completely dedicated to support the educational needs from the students. So when we were talking about prevention, just taking the academic side, Natalie has been great, because then we hire external tutors that provide specific and individual tutorials according to the needs of the students. So for example, right now, there are students suffering in chemistry because the background is really poor, and they benefit from 5-6 sections with an external tutor. So the short-term objective is that now we are evaluating all those efforts. That, of course, includes investment, right, of time and money. But the results have been brilliant, right? Like, from the 12 kids that have received the support this year, all of them passed the IB. And we already know that that's not the best element, but the most important element has been to see these guys learning and enjoying the UWC experience, right? Like, once they have more support in the educational area, then they have more time to have fun and to socialize and to dedicate to the 20s program and the residential program. So after we present those results, what we want to keep doing is to keep that program and invest more resources for following years, so those students will be better prepared. We are also considering if they should come earlier before orientation. So we're in the middle of defining what else can we do with those students that will need extra support, so they feel better when they are here. I know that alumni usually has many questions and proposals, and when it comes to us, we take those into account. But this webinar will be great, because it will be a one-to-one conversation almost, when you can share questions and proposals. And for us, it's also a great opportunity to have your support. For example, Faima, or alumni from Spain, she just left, and she came here doing a set of activities that was amazing for our students, and they are all related with the educational goals, but also with the wellness of the students. And we know there are many of you out there doing amazing things that probably respond exactly to what we are doing here. So this is also an opportunity for us to know about what you are doing and then get connected, so we receive your support. Is always very smart and strategic when we bring alumni, not just because we want to see you guys and see what you're doing, but because you know exactly what is the experience, and the students feel that you will understand what's happening with them. So just because of that, the chemistry and the magic happens, and then the programs you develop are really, really successful. So we hope to see you at the webinar. Please remember the day and the time, and probably Renee, Nela, Natalie, and other staff members that have a big piece in this program will be there, so you can also hear from them.